In today's episode, I will talk about Attack of the Mutants, both the game and the radio play that premiered last week, tips on how to play Warfighter in Warfighter Corner, what is in the works, and the coming attractions for next month, all on Speak Out and Play. Hello, and welcome to the October 2024 edition of Speak Out and Play. It's the day before Halloween, so I hope you have all your candy ready, your porch light works fine, and that you've cleared the leaves and all obstacles from your walkway to avoid those pesky lawsuits. So let's start the podcast with a tradition at Seek Out and Play YouTube channel, the annual recap of my Attack of the Mutants game. For longtime viewers of Seek Out and Play YouTube channel, the arrival of my annual radio play version of Attack of the Mutants is certainly expected, if not all that welcome it seems, at least based on the number of viewers that I get for it. I can't say I blame anyone for not jumping up and down about a game that's been out of print for over 40 years on a subject that's not exactly in the same line as Upfront or Warfighter and the like. But the B-movie aspect of the game makes it the perfect radio play to create. The back-and-forth nature, the uncertainty, and the brutal finality make it something that I look forward to playing year after year. The game that I've transformed into a radio play this year was most unusual in that a couple of the battles around turn 7 destroyed virtually all the mutants at the cost of virtually all the humans, except for the professor and his daughter that were in the tech room. Now, I've played Attack of the Mutants many, many times, and I cannot remember another game where so many were wiped out in a single turn. It left 3 mutants, 2 of them paired in a room, 3 turns to reach the tech room. Now, 2 of them managed to make it to the door, but they failed to enter on the final turn. And so that was a close game for sure. And it made for a pretty good radio play. And if you watched it, you noticed that there was some artwork that I put in with it. Thank you, AI, because that's what I used to help create the artwork, just to liven it up a bit for the YouTube version of the podcast or the radio play that I did. Now, before I continue about the radio play, I'd like to give a little background on the game for those who might not be that familiar with it. Attack of the Mutants by Yaquinto is an out-of-print game which is set in what is now the near-past year of 1993. The setting is taken straight from a horror B-movie, a group of desperate humans trapped inside a building with hordes of mutated zombies coming in from the outside. At the core of the building is the tech room, where Professor Applewhite has created the Dynamic Ultimate Placement Device, a mechanism that can transport people to another dimension or alternate universe. The game is a race against time as the humans and their jury-rigged Janabots must keep the mutants away from entering the tech room by the end of turn 10. There is a rigid turn sequence which starts with the mutants attempting to smash the doors, open the doors for other mutants, and move into the next space, followed by combat, which is mandatory when mutants and humans and or their Janabots are in the same space. Next is the human phase, in which they can move, enter new spaces, and then combat ensues when they are in the same space as the mutants. The final phase is known as Glow and Go, where radioactive mutants are eliminated on a roll of 6 on a 6-sided die. When that is finished, then that turn ends and the next one begins. The mutants have the advantage in numbers, while the humans and Janabots are more powerful individually. Humans can also set up barricades which shut off doorways inside the building, limiting where movement can take place. However, the Janabots cannot move independently. They can only move when a human is in their space. Now, what I really like about the game and why I do an annual playthrough is that it is simple and classic. There is nothing complicated about how it plays. The situation is quite tense, and I've had many games which have come down to the last turn, which makes it even more exciting. The B-movie feel is quite strong and well represented in the artwork, although I do have some issues with the cover. It has become a Halloween favorite of mine for that very reason. Now, I've made several videos about Attack of the Mutants, which is a two-player game that can easily be played solitaire if you use a random setup for the mutants. I have included that setup in one of my videos about the game. It is a two-handed solitaire experience, but given that the objective of the mutants are all the same, which is to get to the tech room as fast as possible, it's easy to just simply move every mutant toward that room, which is exactly what an AI bot would do. Now, I do have a few quibbles about the game, although they are fairly minor. The most important one is that the game map is just too small. Now, the album format, which Quinto became famous for, is a great idea for packaging. It also probably saved them some money, too, because the albums are of the same size and they're easy to produce. But the individual spaces on the map are just too small, and that creates big piles of counters for mutants which must be sorted through during the glow and go phase, because you have to identify the radioactive mutants, from that stack of larger mutants, and that can be a bit of a pain. So the obvious remedy is to create a larger map. And while adding miniatures seems obvious at first, the sheer number of mutants might make that not possible, because even in a larger area, there's still so many mutants that can be there. So for me, blocks seems like a better choice, especially when using green blocks for normal mutants and red blocks for mutants that are suffering from radiation. That way you can simply look at the stack and easily see how many radioactive mutants that there are. Now, I have published the week before a video on the optional rules as printed in the game. But like Risk, Attack of the Mutants does open itself up to house rules as well for those who like to fiddle around and add some, things that they would like to see in the game. Now, one obvious option, although I haven't fully tested it, is to trade one barricade for one booby trap. The booby trap explodes at the end of the mutant movement phase if mutants have entered the room. All occupants inside that room are destroyed. In solitaire games, I think the booby trap optional rule can be quite effective, but it probably should be limited to maybe one or two per game. However, in a two-player game, an obvious workaround by the mutant player is to only send one mutant forward into a new room, which minimizes the effectiveness of the booby trap. However, you will slow down most of the mutants by one turn. So, that has to be considered. Now, that's all I have to say about Attack of the Mutants for now, except that you can expect to see another radio play next year, because that's how much I enjoy the game, even if I don't get that many people watching the video. So now let's switch things over to Warfighter Corner. With the release of Warfighter Vietnam and the upcoming release of Warfighter Chittor, more people are getting the opportunity to try out the Warfighter system. And while both new games feature the revised rulebook, it will be easier to learn the game than ever. But that does not mean that there won't be any questions. There are always questions when it comes with any game of moderate complexity, and especially in the case of Warfighter, which I don't find to be that complex, but there's simply a lot of stuff. And when you have a lot of stuff, it can be difficult to remember all of that. So, despite the changes that have been made with the new rulebook, Warfighter is still a different enough type of system that many people are used to playing, particularly those who come from a wargaming background and may think that the same wargaming principles apply to Warfighter. And they really don't. The Warfighter system is different enough that I've seen many questions posted in the Facebook group about how the game plays. So what I'm going to do is break down some of the more common questions that I've seen in how to play Warfighter. So this isn't going to be like a tutorial or anything like that. Instead, I'm just going to provide a few tips and insights that will hopefully help you understand some of the most important concepts of the Warfighter system. So starting with number one, of all the stumbling blocks that I've seen in terms of players trying to learn the game, the two that stand out, at least for me, are keywords and turn sequence. Now, I've played Magic the Gathering for some time, or I should say I have played Magic the Gathering for a time. I played it for more than a dozen years, and keywords are really second nature to me in that regard because that's what Magic the Gathering uses. But it should be noted that in Warfighter, there are a lot more keywords than magic. But the function of the keywords is to act as a shortcut, a way to explain rules that are unique to certain soldiers or situations without having to put them in the overall rule book. So you see a keyword, you don't know what it is, you open the keyword sheet and you read it, and then there you go. Keeping the keyword sheet is handy, as it is always a good thing to have when you run into that question. And remember that words that are underlined on the card are a skill, not a keyword. So have the skill cards for the set handy so you can refer to them if need be, but that's usually during the setup phase. So if you see something that's underlined and you're not quite sure, maybe go through your skill cards to see if that could be it. So the second stumbling block is the turn sequence, but that's overcome rather quickly enough. Especially for wargamers that are used to a rigid turn sequence, Warfighter represents a significant change because you can execute the soldier turn in any order you choose in terms of the actions or activities that are available. It's somewhat more difficult to teach the game in terms of a playthrough because one player is going to play it one way and maybe play their action cards and then move their soldiers and then fire and then play more action cards, and another person may move, fire, and then use their action cards. It's never the same. So when you look at the turn sequence for the soldier turn, it's not presented in order. It is really just a grab bag of things that you can do. And for many wargamers who are used to learning a game through a rigid turn sequence system, that can be a real change. So that's the other thing, is that when you look at the soldier turn and you look at how it's ordered on the tactical display, just keep in mind that that's just a grab bag. It's not meant to be played in that order. Now, having said that, the hostile turn sequence is rigid. You follow the order as it is played out. But the human player can play any action or activity in any order. So you want your soldier to move first and then fire? Great. Fire first and then move? Great. Play action cards? Wonderful. Anything you want to do, that's how you can play it. And that includes how you play the action cards at any time during the soldier turn. So just consider the turn sequence for soldiers as a grab bag. But for the hostile player and everything after the hostile turn, for the rest of the turn, that is in a rigid order. You do it in that specific order. So that's how that works. I know that sounds a bit confusing, but hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Now, don't worry about getting everything right on your first try. That's another thing that I see. People want to get it. There's some people out there that want to get it right the first time they play it. That ain't going to happen. I can tell you that. You're not going to get it right. Don't worry about getting it right. What you want to do is play it through. It may take you 3 tries, 5 tries, 10 tries, whatever it is. Have fun. It is a learning experience. It doesn't mean that you're going to learn the game the wrong way. It means you're having fun. If you're having fun, great. And then you learn, oh, I need to do this instead. Great. It doesn't make what you've done before wrong. It simply means that what you're doing afterwards is different. So don't get all mad or get all upset if you find out, oh, I've been playing the game wrong. Yeah, well, that's going to happen. So don't worry about it, because it's not a complicated game, but it is a game with a lot of keywords, which makes memorizing all of them difficult, if not impossible, especially if you play a wide variety of missions. So keep the keyword sheet handy so you can look up the different meanings, keep the rule book nearby. And with a new rule book, with the way it's laid out, you should be able to go straight to that section that talks about a question that might come up for you. So if it's about movement, if it's about hostile turn, if it's about reinforcements, there it all is. So the next tip is remember that you can win the battle and lose the war if you're not paying attention to the requirements of the objective. A common mistake that many players make is trying to eliminate all the hostiles on the way to the objective. Remember that you can just push past them to get to the objective and complete the requirements, if that's how it's laid out. If the objective requires you just to simply be there or blow up the bridge or do something that's one time, well, you don't have to eliminate the hostiles to get there. Just keep that in mind. Don't try to blow up everything and get there, because you're going to run out of time. You need to get to the objective. So you need to move fast enough so you can reach the objective and complete the requirements, and slow enough so you can eliminate what you can to make it a bit easier to get there. But remember, You don't have to blow them all up. You don't have to get rid of them all. You just have to complete the objective. Now, one tactic that I use in trying to complete an objective, depending on exactly what it is to leave a soldier or two, maybe a location behind. And that will help draw off some hostiles that would otherwise concentrate on your other soldiers. So if you have, for example, let's say some squad soldiers that are being targeted by the hostiles, moving them back might move those hostiles away, so that way your player soldiers can get to the objective and complete it for your victory. You might be sacrificing a squad soldier or two, but it might be worth it. So keep that in mind as well. And then I see questions about what type of equipment should I take? Is there an optimal squad? And the answer to that is really simple. There is no optimal squad for any mission in Warfighter. You can build a squad, and luck plays just enough of a role that you can get different results each time you play it. It may not be wildly different, but there will be different results. So there's no optimal squad. I've never seen it. I don't think it can be created. Unless it's a really bad mission and objective, I don't think it could be created. But don't worry about that. Just try to build a nice normal squad when you play it, and if you want to add a flamethrower next time, go right ahead. If you want to add another piece of equipment, fantastic. What I will encourage is that for missions that allow for 2-player soldiers, go ahead and do it. Play those 2-player soldiers. That will really, really help, because that improves the card flow, which improves the options, which makes it easier for you to get through the missions. Now, that's assuming that there's enough resource points available for you to deck out 2 player soldiers. Now, I've created a series of videos on the Warfighter 29 system, which allows you to create a team using just 29 resource points. Now, what that does is it reduces the number of hostiles that can appear when a new location is laid down. So the minimum number of hostiles for that location which can appear will be there for 29 points or less. So that can keep the number of hostiles down. So you can play the Warfighter 29 system, and that's usually with 1-player soldier. Maybe you have a squad soldier in there, and that'll really help you to get the basics of the game in a fairly simple way, while also allowing for a good chance, or a decent chance at least, to get to the objective. I hope all that rambling helps. Those are just a few tips that I have. I will feature more in future podcasts. So shifting gears, let's see what's in the works for the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel for November of 2024. This is the quietest time for the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel, at least in terms of what is being produced next. What I can say is that Warfighter Ch'Tor seems to be close to being released for Kickstarter backers. However, DVG is having some issues right now with its website, at least at the time of this recording. So those issues may be cleared up by the time this podcast is posted, or it may take a little bit longer. Whether that delays Ch'Tor coming out or not, I have no idea. I just know that they're going through some issues, and so it may have an effect, but Warfighter Ch'Tor does seem to be the next game that's coming out. But when all that is sorted out and I get my hands on the game, I will produce some videos about it the same way that I did for Warfighter Vietnam, and those videos are still coming out. They're scheduled to come out over the next few months. They're done, they're shot, they're scheduled, so there they are. And Ch'Tor will get a prominent spot as well, and I'll probably create 3 or 4 videos at least for that. And because Ch'Tor is more of a beginner game, because they actually eliminate some things in that one, it is designed a little bit more for new players. Although experienced players should have fun with it as well. The videos that I make will probably be more in line of teaching people how to play it. So from then on, any other game that I back that also gets released will get some new videos as well. As far as my current series goes, there will be more Warfighter 29, Vento Nuovo games, Gunslinger, and Upfront videos that are going to come out over the next several months. I am planning a final series of Upfront videos to cover the last remaining sections of the rules. I hope to finish that out by the end of next year. Now, I'm always open to suggestions about what game system to do more videos on, but getting the game will depend on large part on the support that my channel receives. It's always a trade-off. If you want to see me, do videos on a game that I don't have, well, it helps when people support my channel so that way I can go get it. And I have a Patreon page for that. And speaking of asking for support and letting you know what's coming up in the month of November, here are the coming attractions for November 2024 on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. For the first Wednesday in November 2024, Seek Out and Play presents Pandemic: Fall of Rome. Let's get started. A short video that teaches the setup, turn sequence, and victory conditions for Pandemic: Fall of Rome by Z-Man Games. The video is designed to help those who are not familiar with the Pandemic system to start their first game. Pandemic: Fall of Rome is a cooperative game that can be played from 1 to 6 players. It is on the lighter side of the wargame spectrum and features a proven system on the popular topic of Rome's eventual fall to the barbarian tribes of Europe and Asia. For the second Wednesday in November 2024, I will discuss how to create a Chinese National Army team for Warfighter 29. The Warfighter 29 format is designed to allow you to create a compact team for various missions in the series using just 29 resource points. The video provides a sample team along with the attributes and challenges that players face when playing the Chinese. Warfighter World War II by DVG is a cooperative game for 1 to 6 players. It is a system of man-to-man combat that is card-based and offers a wide variety of missions, objectives, equipment, and nations. This video uses the Chinese expansion packs number 1 and number 2 to create the player teams. The third Wednesday in November 2024 offers 2 videos. The first is Upfront Design Your Own Optional Rules. This short video describes the Design Your Own, or DYO, optional rules found in Upfront on pages 25 and 26 of the rulebook. The video covers all 3 DYO options for setting up any scenario. The DYO optional rules are the same basic rules used for the 501 City Fightin' 4 series that is covered on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. The second video covers the end phase and optional rules for Fortune and Glory, a game by Flying Frog Productions. The video covers each step of the end phase, plus the optional rules that players can use to enhance their experience with the game. Fortune and Glory has released a second edition, and while the video uses components from the first edition, the second edition rules for the end phase and optional rules are presented. Check out more videos when you subscribe to the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. In addition, there is a monthly Speak Out and Play podcast, which you can find on Buzzsprout and Spotify. For just $2 per month, you can support the channel by becoming a Patreon member and see the videos and podcast 48 to 72 hours in advance. At least one new video is released every week on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel, so I will see you next Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the Speak Out and Play podcast for October 2024. The podcast is published every month on the Monday before the last Wednesday of each month on Buzzsprout and Spotify. The video podcast comes out on the last Wednesday of each month. And for Patreon members who pay just $2 a month to support the channel, all videos and podcasts come out 48 to 72 hours in advance. A new video is released on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel each week, so I will see you next Wednesday. And if you see Sally, bring her all the way home.